We believe that videos, images, words, and sounds have the absolute power to inform, inspire, and entertain. We are united under the virtues of safety and knowledge. We are a training community of learners and teachers who encourage and energize each other to achieve greatness. We are pilots, videographers, photographers, freelancers, business owners, enthusiasts, experts, and apprentices. We are creators. We are the Drone U.
Hey guys, and welcome to another hairless episode of Ask Drone U. My name is Paul.
And I'm Rob. And this is Ask Drone U, and you already said that. But anyways, it's podcast 276, and we're glad that you're with us.
Stating the obvious is
We're having a lot of
sometimes fun.
It is a lot of fun. Of course, and nowadays people can see the baldness that you refer to in all of its glory.
That is actually exactly what I was talking about. But you know what, Rob? It is a good, beautiful Tuesday. It's a beautiful day to fly. The weather outside is incredible.
The wind's actually picked up.
The wind did pick up a little bit.
windy.
It did. Means no long exposures for tonight. But you know what? It means more time to fly, more time to practice. It also means time for you to go out and fly and realize that you have a question. So be sure to go to Ask Drone U and upload that question so we can answer it. We also want to say super, super thank you to our friends at Urban Drones. Very excited to give the new Splash drone a test and review this weekend.
You're taking a little trip just for the purpose of testing that drone.
I was trying to figure out a way to take a trip, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. And I don't blame you for that.
The balds are leaving. Why am I still here?
That's right.
Like, what is going on?
The balds. That's awesome. Yes, and you're going to warmer weather.
Yes, I will be
nice.
enjoying the beautiful sunny skies of Arizona, although
cool.
I wish I was continuing to take some of those flight lessons while I was out there because it is much warmer out there. But we'll be enjoying the day on a Centurion FS-44 boat.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it should be fun.
You going to do any wake surfing?
I am.
Nice.
Yeah,
Get some video.
I am. You know, I have photos of me wake surfing, and I never post any of them until someone's like, I don't believe that Paul shoots these videos and surfs. I don't think he could ever surf. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
He's calling you out like that?
I'm going to get some air and show you. Like, what's good?
Wow. I'm looking forward to seeing that, Paul.
All right, well, I will show you.
Now, you got to land the air, right?
This is true. It's actually easier to land on a surfboard than it is like a wakeboard. Wakeboarding, you know, you have more of like this raw kind of, your feet are planted, and if you make a mistake, your weight goes with it, and you can't really recover.
Huh.
On a surfboard, you have a little bit more margin of error, I guess you could say, because your feet aren't planted, so you can like move your feet and adjust your weight.
Well, someday you got to let us try it. The balds.
I would love to do that. I actually was hoping that when we got a certain number of members that maybe we would go to the lake as a team, have some team fire bonding.
Like 1,000?
I was thinking like 500.
500, okay.
You know.
That's cool.
You know, just, yeah, anyway. So, guys, we got a great question today, and it's in light of all the recent drone proposed law. By the way, I have news for you. Do you know what yesterday was? We forgot to mention it.
No, what?
It was the 1-year anniversary that the proposed NPRM 107 law was actually given to the public.
Okay.
It's
1 year
also
ago that came out.
Yeah, let's see, October, November, December, January, February. It's also 5 months after the deadline that they were supposed to release that.
Well,
just wanted
let's
to
not
let you
quibble
guys know at the FAA that you're running a little late.
let's not quibble over details, Paul.
No, well, you know, those small little nuances. I mean, anyway, but, you know, we have heard of the HB 4432, the proposed bill in Congress, also the AIR Act, which just had the micro UAS ruling. By the way, Brendan Schulman sent me an email and gave me the press release from DJI on their feelings about micro UAS, and they are very pro micro UAS. So maybe these lobbying dollars are finally coming about. So
yeah, I know one of your biggest hopes is that they get that Inspire underneath the 4.4.
Yes, that is one of my biggest hopes. One of my biggest hopes, too, is that the way that they calculate weight is not with the fuel or the energy or the battery.
Boy, you're really stretching that out, aren't you?
Well, I mean, you think about how a plane is weighed. I mean, isn't it the exact same?
So let me ask you this. Do you think there's any chance of that threshold raising, going higher? From 4.4 to higher than that?
No. And it's funny because even a lot of people online have been like, why would they allow a micro UAS rule? That's the most problematic, troublesome drones. And it's like, yeah, it's also the same drones that are being used by small businesses. It's also the same drones that are being used by over 10,000 businesses that are not registered with the FAA. So I think I think the fact that micro UAS or any drone under 4.4 pounds would be exempt from any and all FAA rules, I think is a huge blessing.
Well, I don't think that's even true that those are the most problematic. I think it's a perception.
It is a perception.
But it's not necessarily reality.
Well, I mean, what you're taking is, if 0.1% of the bad drones, which we know how many reports are of close calls. We know how many of those close calls were actually quote-unquote close calls thanks to the AMA. So if we have 3.5 million drones out there, 300,000 have been registered. We still have a gap of about 3.2 million drones. And not only that, there have only been maybe 400 instances of issues as of today.
Right.
None of those issues have caused fatalities ever. And that being said, so we take 400 out of 3.5 million, and that's the percentage of quote-unquote bad drones.
Yeah, and you take anything in our world, and you're going to find issues. I mean,
exactly.
So.
It's just like, but you know what it is? It's the media. It's the sensationalism of, oh my God, planes are going down. There was a drone near an airport. Everyone freak out now. Okay, freak out over. Anyway, my point is that you can't take the specific and make it general.
Absolutely. As much as people are attempting to do that,
yes,
we've got to keep them from being successful.
Got to rein those media hookers in.
Sorry. Not sure where to go when Paul does stuff like that. Anyways, but what we do have to do is continue to educate people and do our part. And when I say our, I don't mean our, I mean our. That includes all of you guys getting the word out to make sure people are doing things the right way, flying safe, etc. Getting educated, don't crash course.
Definitely.
Shameless plug, etc.
But that's what it's all about. I mean, like, that's why we did Don't Crash, because normally we do much deeper content. And the Don't Crash is all about, you guys are new to drones. Here's every way you can crash. Here's every way you can screw up and cause a potential problem in the media or for yourself and waste money. And here's how to avoid all of those things and fly like a pro and actually look cool and enjoy what you're doing. So if you want to look cool and enjoy what you're doing, don't crash.
And there's
Course.com.
And there's a way to not crash. There really is. But it takes a little bit of work up front instead of just firing that thing up and hitting the skies.
That's true.
Don't do that.
So let's just roll into today's question because it all has to do with everything that we're talking about. And I feel like we tease the questions more than the actual questions sometimes. But there's nothing wrong with that. So let's get into the question.
Hey guys, it is VonQuad down here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I just got done listening to episode 262 where you were talking about how cities are kind of overriding and making ordinances on drones that are overriding what the feds are doing. And my question is this. You know, I work a full-time job and I'm doing, my podcasting. I'm busy doing a lot of things and I don't know who to contact to try to be an advocate here in my area. I live outside of Charlotte. I live in a town called Monroe. And I want to try to be my presence here in this area for drones, kind of like what you guys are doing in Albuquerque, Vic Moss is doing up in Denver. So who do I contact or where do I go to try to get information and try to find out all of the rules for either Charlotte or Monroe, North Carolina? Do I just call up a mayor's office? Do I go to a certain website? I'm sure listeners across the United States and their areas would like to know maybe where they could start their case or who to talk to, but like me, I don't know who to call or where to go. So, and I don't really have the time to go trying to figure all of this stuff out. So maybe you could give us some insight on who to contact. So that would be my question. Once again, love the podcast, but you know that. So thanks a lot, guys.
Mr. Trace VonQuad. I feel like whenever I hear VonQuad, that's what I think of. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the question. It's a good one.
It is a good one because, at first, Trace's first question, if everyone remembers, is, hey, I just bought an Inspire One, and I was like, what?
This goes
You
way
do
back.
not buy an Inspire One as your first drone. And then he actually ended up becoming a member, and we've gotten to know Trace very well. And I thought this was another one of those, like, you know, what do you Google questions? But now that I've like heard it and I've heard what the context,
Right.
I think it's actually a really good question because it's about, where do you look? And there are a lot of places that Google can't quite help you in this aspect.
Yeah, and what I like about it is he's interested in getting involved, in being an active participant of the
Amen.
process.
Amen.
And trying to keep things from, because a lot of times what happens, it's kind of like what some might argue is more sort of Western style medicine, is you're treating the symptom or after the fact that you're starting to treat something. And I think he's trying to head it off and start being a part of the solution before things happen.
I think that's great. And I think that's one of the defining factors of the two different kind of types of people in society. You've got the owner mentality, when they see a problem, they want to fix it, or the member mentality, they expect someone else to fix it. And whenever we hear people who are trying to be a solution and counteract these measures, it's awesome. So Trace, you, my friend, are doing it right, and we really, really appreciate that.
Yes,
and
kudos.
that being said, in the case of 262, I think we were talking about Albuquerque.
We were the ordinance that passed, I think.
Yeah, which we found out was actually unilaterally done without a hearing or a commission or anything. I think there are a lot of places that you can start. First of all, you got to know what drone law already exists in your area. Number two, in Monroe, North Carolina, where you are, Trace, I'm guessing it's kind of a more rural area because of the goat videos that you posted. That being said, I would go to the Farmers Association or the Farmers Bureau in that area and try to educate those people on how drones actually add significant value. They can help farmers, see water content, plant health indexing, diseases, and really help the farmers become more efficient and also more profitable, and in the end helps everyone. Because I think if we educate the value in drones to specific individuals, groups, and industries, I think it's really, really helpful and beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would think, because the reality is, Paul, as far as we know, there's not some super duper internet site, right?
That's true.
Website that somebody can go to
There's
and kind of get the goings on of any particular town per se, especially not in one concentrated area.
Like Facebook?
Well,
Sorry, I just...
yes, like Facebook. There is nothing like that for drones.
True. Okay, true.
So, but there are places like Facebook. I mean, that's the reality of where people are getting their information. It's amazing to me how many times you bring up a story and like, where'd you see that?
Facebook.
Facebook. So that's kind of your news source nowadays.
Oh, yeah, which I don't...
Or at least one of them, I should say it that way.
Yes, and I don't like having Facebook as a news source because you hear more opinion than you do facts, but that's just the world that we live in.
Exactly. That's just the nature of the beast. So you got to be
Mm-hmm.
really careful where your news comes from. But maybe plugging into, I would think, so I know the city of Albuquerque, you could go onto their site and you could be notified of meetings and
You
new
can have
ordinances.
a Google alert to set up, like Monroe, North Carolina drone, or North Carolina drone, or county drone, North Carolina. You could set up Google alerts so that you're notified of any new legislation. I have Google alerts for both drone and UAV, but not anything specific beyond that.
Yeah. But so every morning you get an email, and all you have to do is read the headlines, right? It's not like you're having to go read every article.
Well, sometimes I do. No, I
don't
don't
have
ever
to.
do that.
Yes.
I don't ever do that. Yeah, you're right. Google alerts are a great way to start. But also, in the instance you live in a bigger city or town, you can look at city council meetings. Look at the minute sheet and see what are they going to be discussing. If they're going to be discussing drones, you probably want to be there because chances are there are more negative Nancys at those meetings than there are advocates, which is kind of sad, but again, it's the nature of the beast. So what's another place that we can go and be advocates if we see, let's go state issue, right? If a state is trying to make a drone law, who do we go to talk about that and advocate for drones?
Well, again, I think I'd start with the state site.
Well, yeah, and
You
I
could
would
go to your local representative.
a local representative, I think, is great, but also who was the senator or congressman or state senator who represented that specific bill and talking to them, because that's what we did last year. If you remember Senator Ortiz y Pino, I know that's a crazy name. Think about that. My name has an "and" symbol in it. My name is Senator Ortiz y Pino, which translates to Ortiz and Pino. Isn't that funny?
That's pretty cool.
Anyway, New Mexico nuances.
Yes, indeed.
That being said, go to the state senator's bill. There's also a great form that the FAA just put out. I can't believe I just said that. There's a great form that the FAA just put out.
You said it. It's recorded and
Is the world ending?
here forever.
John? Okay, nope, it's not. All right. That being said, they did put out a memo concerning states' rights and counties' rights on regulating airspace, and it's kind of very clearly put that, hey guys, you don't have any authority to regulate the airspace. Leave it up to us. So, but I think what you're seeing is the states and cities and counties' response to drones and the perceived problems and the lack of governance on a federal level.
Yeah, and I will say it's one of the reasons it's so important to stay on top of these issues is because once an ordinance has been passed, be it unilaterally or not, however the procedure works, it's going to be really difficult to get rid of those and to overturn those.
And right now we're looking into having sanctions for certain parks that would be flying parks, or specific parts of the parks would be, sanctioned just for flying.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, some other things that people could do. Most communities, if they don't already have local groups, they're developing them. People that get together and fly.
Yeah.
FPV has a lot of those going on now. That's growing so fast.
Yeah, Albuquerque has the Southwest Pod Racers group.
Yeah, and so even though it sounds like it's all about racing, I would think at least some subsection of those groups is connected and plugged into what's going on in the community.
Absolutely.
Because they care.
Yeah.
And they know that the way that they have fun and they like to race, it's in danger of being outlawed, essentially.
Which is unbelievable, but true.
Yeah, so plug into those groups, which you're going to just have to Google. We don't know them all across the states.
You can find them. Just, and just try to, if you go to a store, like, for example, if you're having a hard time finding a group on Facebook, an FPV racing group, go to your local hobby shop, go to your local drone store, and figure out where are they looking at content. Where are there FPV groups? Do they meet? I didn't really know of our local groups until I went to a hobby store. So
yeah, absolutely. And then finally, one of the other things that we think would be a good idea to follow or be a part of is what are some of the top drone lawyers doing? What are they putting out?
Great idea. For example, Brendan Schulman, he's got a Facebook page, Drone Laws Brendan Schulman, and he gives updates all the time on Twitter, on Facebook about what's going on in the legal industry and really in all aspects in accordance to drones.
Yeah, and so that might not speak directly to your community, particularly if it's a small community, but it could give you a sense of sort of the wave that's coming.
It's true.
And perhaps you try to be out in front of that wave and surf it?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, cool. Don't need a boat for that one.
No, I will not take that any further than it needs to go. So beyond Facebook groups, we've talked about Google Alerts, getting in tune with your city council or administrative group, whatever that is, getting involved with associations and groups that are industry specific. For example, the farmers industry and association, networking groups for certain industries. Educate as much as you can. I think this is what this really comes down to, is just educating people, because the more people that know the value to drones, the more people that when they hear these ridiculous stories on the news, they're going to be like, I know my local drone guy, and he's told me how pretty much impossible that is to do. And he's also told me about the validity of these reports. So, and I do want to say, if you've heard the reports of a drone close call at an airport, the AMA did do a report that systematically went through all of these near sightings and realized that out of the 776 near sightings of drones, there were actually only 4 instances where a drone could have caused harm to an airplane. That a lot of times they couldn't even categorize the drone as a drone. It could have been a bird. It could have been a balloon.
Oftentimes those were actually military exercises in the first place.
Yes, that was also in the AMA report, that a majority of the drone crashes that they mentioned, all of them were military exercises. So, you just can't believe everything you hear on the news. And I got to say, Rob, I've started turning off the news. I just don't watch it anymore. I gave up on it. So,
well, it's certainly not an uplifting experience.
No.
I mean,
I saw the news and I was inspired today to help people. Really?
Well, nowadays there are so many ways to get your news. And, I suppose there's certainly a couple generations or people in general that like to watch the news. But for me, I agree. I can go stab myself
let
instead.
me give you a rundown of the news from last night, Rob. 5 people died, 2 people were stabbed, someone died at an ATM, and the city is going to outlaw new things. Have a nice night.
That's right.
The weather is going to be warm. That's the news.
Windy, and it's going to rain.
That was the news. That was the news. Oh man, it's just funny though. Any other ways that we can really link up with the leaders in our community?
I think that's it. I mean, I think that's a pretty good list. And I think the next step is where you're starting to go to the meetings, city council meetings, county commission meetings, whatever it is that's making the rules where you live. Go check those out. Spend a little time. If it's important to you, which I think it probably is if you're listening to this,
definitely
take the time to go do that. And I know everybody's busy, so it's not practical for everybody. But if you can fit it in, it's worth your time.
Absolutely, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us today. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been a part of this podcast. I really want to say thank you to GPC. If you need a case, utilize the code DRONEU15, and you can save 10% on a case. Special thanks to Urban Drones, who's going to be sending us a splash drone. We're going to give you lots of information about that in an upcoming podcast. And special thanks to Mr. John Dennison, our producer, who is behind the scenes. And if I glance over like this, as if I'm trying to get someone to look at me, that's who I'm talking to. So anyway, greatly appreciate that. Greatly appreciate Drone U as a whole. If you know someone who's new to flying, tell them to check out the Don't Crash course. Really, we made this because we want the industry to progress as a whole. And frankly, education is really the key. As we've been saying here this whole time, that's going to really help us progress as a whole. So the more people that are raving fans and can educate other people, the better we all are. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for us today. My name is Paul.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Drone U.
We believe that videos, images, words, and sounds have the absolute power to inform, inspire, and entertain. We are united under the virtues of safety and knowledge. We are a training community of learners and teachers who encourage and energize each other to achieve greatness. We are pilots, videographers, photographers, freelancers, business owners, enthusiasts, experts, and apprentices. We are creators. We are the Drone U.